Welcome back to Capitol Review. I'm Mark Hall. President Trump with a big win recently on Capitol Hill, the House passing the big, beautiful bill, and it still has to get Senate approval. Many expecting some changes before the Senate gives it a thumbs up. Meanwhile, overseas, the president and the administration working around the clock to end the Russia-Ukraine war. Joining us now is Colin Reed, a Republican strategist with D.C.-based firm South and Hill. Colin, welcome back to Capitol Review.
Mark, happy weekend.
Hey, it's great to have you, sir. Let's talk about President Trump getting the big, beautiful bill through the House. Does this give him momentum with the Senate?
Sure does, Mark. And the fact that it got through the House faster than, frankly, anyone thought was a nice win for him. And don't forget, this big, beautiful bill, this is the legislative vehicle. This is the implementation for a lot of things that were discussed in the campaign trail last year. A lot of things, some of which actually have bipartisan support, including things like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. So this is the way that all those things that were talked about in the campaign trail become policies. And of course, it is also the way to extend the 2017 tax cuts, which are set to expire at the end of the year unless Congress does something. So great win, gonna go to the Senate. Legislating is always messy, but it was certainly a nice way to start, and we're on to the next step in the process.
You talk about legislation can be messy. What if the Senate makes some changes? Can it still be a win for the president and, more importantly, a win for the American people?
Well, it's going to get done in some form or fashion, and the sausage making always is of great interest, and it takes on all these various twists and turns, and there's some in the Republican Party who think the bill goes too far, and there's some others in the Republican Party who think it doesn't go far enough. Ultimately, the details will get hashed out, and we'll have that bill done. And by the way, everyone who votes against this bill, which will be basically every Democrat in Congress, is going to be on record supporting a $4 trillion tax hike, which will happen if this bill doesn't get passed. So it'll get done. My guess is by early fall, the latest, maybe before. Stranger things have happened, but this is all part of the process, and this is the way that the president can really implement a lot of the things he talked about when he was a candidate last year.
Colin, let's head overseas. A big priority in President Trump's foreign policy is the Russia-Ukraine war. President Trump very critical of President Putin recently. Your thoughts on how the president can get both countries to the table and get a deal done?
It's pretty remarkable how far we've come in a year. A year ago, the Biden administration foreign policy was nothing but like, let's continue having this war go on forever. A year later, President Trump came in pretty clearly and said, I want this war to end. And now, by the way, so do a lot of the European leaders. And so now it's just a question of how the war ends, not if it's going to come to an end. And that's good. I mean, the Russians have lost 1 million people. That's twice what the Americans lost in World War II. So this has been an incredibly casualty-filled war for them. Their economy's on the brink as well. And so now it's just a matter of winding this thing down in a way that all parties feel comfortable with, and that the bloodshed can stop, and this thing can finally be put to rest, and Europe can get back on its feet.
Often folks here in this country are critical that we try and police the world, but in all reality, President Trump's probably the only one that can get this deal done.
Yeah, he's been really clear since he was a candidate. He wanted this war to end. And now the devil's always in the details and how it gets done. Look, President Trump's also a guy who believes in peace through commerce. And we saw that through his most recent Middle Eastern trip. If countries are talking to each other, if they're willing and dealing with each other on the business front, it's harder to start wars. So ultimately, this war needs to come down. Now, look what Russia did this week. Not good. It was not helpful toward peace, and they may pay a really steep price if the president doesn't follow through on his discussion of levying some of these extreme sanctions on them. And keep in mind, Mark, the Russian economy, about 2/3 of its energy exports. So if the president follows through and really cracks down on them, they'll have no choice but to come to the table sooner and faster, and in a way that to get this thing done sooner rather than later.
Colin Reed, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Mark.